Now, reminders of a couple of things. And again, you can use Mr. Slope Guy. When we're looking to find the slope of a line, I didn't even put multiple points in here to try and keep life simple on you. All we're doing is we're counting to see from one point to the other how far we are going to go up and how far we are going to go over. Yes, ma'am?
Like for 4 through 6,
yes.
we don't reduce them, is it wrong?
It'd be a partial little thing. We'll talk about that. So, what we're going to do is here, and again, some of you have asked, well, could I go like down and over? Yes. I just like doing it positively because, oh, speaking of positive, up to the right is going to be a positive value. So I know my slope's going to be positive. My only job now is to count, well, let's see, 1, 2, up 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Courtney, that's perfect.
I went the other way though.
Yeah, we got to. Oh, you went like this way and this way?
No, I went over then down.
Okay, but remember, when we're doing slope, yep. Slope is always rise, which is my up or down, over run, which is my right or left. And I have to do it that way. So if you want to count them the other way, you can, but as far as the actual values go, I always have to write it this way because otherwise it just wouldn't work. So, right, because like somebody had said, you mean like if I wanted to go this way instead? You could, because if I went this way instead, I'd still be counting my rise, but it would be -3. And I'd be going left 4, so it'd be -4. And we know that negative divided by negative just becomes positive.
So what if you just put the negative in the positive?
You mean just left it as negative over negative? It'd be a partial. It'd be a little bit. Because, yeah, we always want to simplify things as much as we can.
Number 2, 6 over 6.
Well, let's see. Get my triangle in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm with you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sir, I'm with you. Now, this goes along with what?
Reducing.
Yes.
Is it 1?
It's 1. Or if you put 1 over 1, that'd be okay too. Because I always want to reduce things to their simplest form. So that's excellent. Oh, bless you. Now, what about number 3? And I hear -2, and I think I agree. So here, if I went this way, and again, it doesn't matter which direction I go, I'll get to the same answer at the end. If you go down to get to your second one, remember, that part's going to be negative. But when I go to the right, that's a positive 1. So if I get something over 1, I can leave that. Or if some of you said, well, I just put it as -2, that's okay. You can do that. That's allowed. Okay. So that's all I'm doing on those when the points are in there. Is just drawing them in, going about my business that way. Now when we get to the next part, this is where I hope you got Mr. Slope Guy available if you don't remember these. This is the one where we subtract the y's, and then on the bottom I subtract the x's. But we drew that on Mr. Slope Guy's face anyway. Oh, if you need to move up closer to be able to see, that's okay. Yep, that's okay. And also I'll kind of make this a little bit bigger too. That might help out some. Jumbo size here a little bit. Now the only thing I have to be careful of when I'm doing slope this way, I'm going to make my bar and put the minuses in right away. And I've got to make sure that when I start these, I start with the y's. The y's go on top. Doesn't matter which one I do, but personally, I always just do the second one minus the first one, because that way I always know where everything's at. If you wanted to go the other way, you could, but here's the catch. If I start with this y, I have to start with this x. I don't have a choice. And that's the other reason I put the minus in, because then when there's a negative, I don't forget about it. And I can do all this in the calculator if I want to. Or if I think I know it, I can do that. 4 minus 11
-7
is negative. All right. Now, let me ask one question, though, because minus and negative,
That's wrong with it. It's positive.
now we're back into regularly scheduled stuff. The one thing I wanted to mention here, because I heard Colby say it before, I heard 9. Now be careful. Negative 16 plus 7, I agree with the 9, but it's negative. And like we had up above, if they're both negative, we know negative divided by negative is going to be positive. So I do want to simplify things. And the calculator can help you on that if you just use math enter if you're not sure. All right. Let's knock one more of these out, and then on number 6, I think I'm going to put you on your own for a second. Well, I hope so. That's a good thing. We like getting some stuff in here that's easy. All right. I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. So 19 and negative 1 and 16 and negative 19. And again, that's why I put my minuses in ahead, so I don't make any boo-boos here. So let's see here. Minus and negative becomes plus, or I could put it on the calculator.
Is it -24?
Well, let's see. If that becomes plus, this is 19 plus 1.
I mean, yeah, not -20.
So right, that'd be regular old 20. And then 16 plus 19 is 35. Now,
Yeah, 1%.
if you are not an expert at reducing fractions, and you don't even have to be, here's what I'm going to do if I'm not sure. I'm going to do 20 divided by 35. Now, I'm not just going to put enter and hit this decimal, okay? That doesn't work for slope. I wouldn't want to try to graph that slope. That'd be crazy. If you hit the math button right underneath alpha and enter twice, it'll even reduce the fraction for me. So we like, and most calculators these days have a fraction button anyway. But if you're using the one in here, just hitting math and then hitting enter will get you what you need. Now, here's what I want you to try. I want you to do number 6. Do not holler the answer out right away. I'll pop the answer up here in a minute, but this is going to let you see if you've got this yet or not. And if you do, that's awesome. And if not, well, we've got some more we can play with here. So I am doing it for our friends at home. Well, you guys are doing it
I know the answer.
on yours. Okay, just a second. We'll let you fire an answer out. We'll see if you're right. It's going to be a fraction.
Would you put it like that? Because it goes that way. Would you put it
Yeah.
at 0?
All right. See a couple of you still hitting buttons. I'll wait a little longer here until you're absolutely set here. Want to make sure everybody's had a chance to try this out. And here we go. 9/13.
Yes, sir.
All right. So no problems there. And now the last one, we haven't done as much of this yet as the other two. When we're finding the slope of the line, you're not even going to have to do any math work here. This is going to be awesome. These equations are set up in what's called slope-intercept form. So all you have to do is find the number that's in front of x, and you found your slope. No math. Just remember it's the number in front of x.
Wait, so for 7 would we divide 9?
No, nothing fancy. My slope is
Or was it 9?
9/5. I'm done.
Okay, so it's 37.
It's already set up. You just have to be able to recognize that it's that number and not that one.
So don't sit up then.
I know.
So number 8 is -4.
Number 8 is -4.
So on the quiz, will there be one that we have to set up?
Not yet. Later in the unit, yes, I'll move the things around. Right now, no, not yet.
We did this in the other
Awesome, doubling you up. And that's it. That's the quiz tomorrow. So life is good.
one. This.
We will. We will. That'll be coming still. Yeah, slope intercept form and point slope will still be coming. So, well, that's what we're getting to. We're getting to this stuff now. Well, but we're going to do some parts, okay? That is how big the quiz is tomorrow. Yeah, 9 questions. I know. So now, here's what we're going to be up to today, though. We're going to learn something a little bit new, but it's pretty simple, actually. Notes, which again means what? We can use it, right, you can use it on quizzes or tests. Now, this particular one won't help me tomorrow because, well, it's not about slope, but it's going to help me with some other stuff. So here's how intercepts work, because not every equation that we ever deal with is going to look like these. And we want to have a way to make this easy so we can still graph it and do what we need to do. So, when we look for what are called intercepts, that means where does my graph cross the x-axis, or where does it cross the y? So the x-intercept of a line is where the line crosses, kind of sensible, the x-axis. And again, the x-axis is the one that goes side to side. That's horizontal. At that point, my y-coordinate will always be 0. And we'll talk about that because like on this graph that's right below here, my x-intercept has a y value of 0. The x is 2. For the y-intercept, it crosses the line at the y-axis, and the x-coordinate will always be 0. So this one's crossing at y equals 2. The x value is 0. That's one thing they'll always be consistent about those. And then they have the steps over here to do it. Figure out where it crosses the y-axis, figure out where it crosses the x, and find your points. So what we're going to do, because that one's done already, we're going to identify the x and y intercept from a graph. Now, they might give us a bunch of points, but that's not going to get us. No big deal. The coordinates of the point where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, here's my y-axis. Find the point where it crosses the y right here, and the coordinates, they actually gave me the point this time. My x value is 0, just like we wrote up above when I'm finding the y-intercept. And so again, I guess I got a little ahead of myself. The y-intercept is 0, negative 2. 0, 2. But the other one's not maybe quite so obvious. Where does the line cross the x-axis? Let's see. Here's the x-axis. Yes, I got a little ahead of myself and put the wrong thing in both places. I'll get it right this time. So here's where my line crosses the x-axis. Here's my x-axis. Here's the line going through it. Here, my x value equals 1.
What would be the other one?
Right there. When it's my x-intercept, now let's see here. I know the x is 1. Let me come back down here for a second. When I find the x-intercept, at this point, the y value will always be 0. So my x-intercept is at 1, because that's where the x is, 0, because I didn't go up or down at all. So you notice with my intercepts, one of the numbers is always going to be 0, whichever one I'm not finding. So again, my y-intercept is just where the line crosses the y-axis would be how I find my y-intercept. Just like if I was trying to find the x-intercept, I would just figure out where it crosses the x-axis. Okay? So here's what I'm going to do. Let's see. All right, let's do this. As we flip over, I wish they wouldn't have labeled them, but we're still going to work with this. we're going to determine the x and the y-intercept. Now, they've given us two intercepts over there, but I want to know which one's which. Which one of these 2 points is my x-intercept? The 4, 0, because here's my x-axis, and that's the point that's on it. That's why this is my x-intercept. My y-intercept is the one that I get crossing the y-axis. And that's why the number that I have is going to be the y value. The number I have for the x is going to be my x value. And we're not going to explain the meaning of the y-intercept again because we just did. That'd be kind of silly. So what happens if they don't give it to me? What happens if instead they give me something else? Like maybe instead of a graph, they give me a table. Ew. Now I start to look through here and I'm like, well, wait a minute. One of the numbers is always 0 when I have an intercept. Well, I see here 0, 2. Now 0, 2, would that be a y-intercept or an x-intercept? Okay, why? Because the number that's not 0 is here. So I know what my y-intercept is. But here's the catch. I don't see any other things that say something 0 to have my x-intercept, so how do I do this? I might have to do a little algebra every once in a while. So here's what I'm going to do to try and make this work. If they give me the equation of the line, and they do, and I know when I'm finding my x-intercept that y has to equal 0. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to take their equation, and I'm going to plug in 0 where the y is at. So I'm like, okay, so 0 equals negative 2x plus 2. I took the y out, and I put the y value in. And we're equation experts. Like I keep saying, that's always been the thing we've been best at. If I want to solve for x minus the 2, okay, so negative 2x equals negative 2. And what's my last step? What do I have to divide both sides by? Negative 2, so it's going to be 1. So my x-intercept would be 1, 0. That's okay. Would be 1, 0. And I'm set. And that's all I'm looking at. So if for some reason I'm given a table and they don't let me have both of them right away, that's how I can figure out the one that happens to be missing. I can just plug that in. Now on the next one, they're a little nicer to us. I think you're going to be able to figure this one out pretty quick. Do you see any?
They go up by 6. Why?
It's true. Now remember, we've talked about this before. When you see a table, these are just coordinate points written in a different way. They're just in a table instead of having parentheses around them like I'm doing now.
X goes by 1.
Right, and that's the, right, you're looking at a good pattern. It would be arithmetic. But here's my question. My x-intercept, remember, has a y value of 0. Do any of my points have a y value of 0? Yeah, which one? Negative 1, 0. That's my x-intercept. That's how I recognize these. If I see one that has an x value of 0, do we have any of those? 0, 6. That's my y-intercept. So I don't even have to have a graph. If I see the 0, that helps me figure out which one's which. So the last thing that really goes along with this, okay, we've done a table, we've taken a look at a picture on a graph. My last one, do I want to play with this? Yes, let's go to the homework. Because there's something I want to show you on the homework anyway. Okay. So this guy, let me make sure I get this right. I want to make sure I don't screw this up. Because tomorrow, we're going to get some homework turned in. So I'm just looking to see. Okay. Oh, no, that's...
It is number one.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
We need like 2 days off.
2 days off. You do. You get them. They're called Saturday and Sunday. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do some of the types like we've been doing. So for instance, up here on the top, I did the first couple for you. Basically what I'm doing is I've got my x and my y axis, and I'm finding the intercepts for each. So like on this first one, I see my x value is 2. So I know when it's an x-intercept, the y value is going to be 0. So my x-intercept right there would be 2, 0. When I do the y, my y value is -2, but I know the x value is going to be 0. So that's where the 0, -2 is coming from. So I'm always looking for those points, trying to find it that way. Now, here's the thing we haven't done yet that's on here. And I can't believe I didn't have it on this first note sheet. I must have it on the one for like tomorrow. I'm going to skip down here to the bottom. What happens if they give me an equation and they don't give me anything else? They want me to graph the line. They want me to tell you the intercepts, but what am I supposed to do? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to scoot over here to number 10. What I do if I'm looking for these, if I'm looking for my x-intercept, I know that y is going to equal 0. So here's the cool thing. If I'm looking for the x-intercept, I'm just going to take the x part of the equation, and I'm going to set it equal to the answer. And when I solve that for x, I'm going to have my x-intercept. It's kind of cool. So if 4x equals 8, what's my one step to figure out what x is? Divide. It's 2. So my x-intercept is 2, 0. My x value is 2. My y value is 0. Every time you do an x-intercept, that y value will be 0, okay? To figure out y, I just do the same thing, but I know that x is going to equal 0. So when I want to find the y, I just write down the y part and the answer, and I'm going to solve that. And they're always going to just be a one-step equation.
Yeah.
You mean my -2y?
No, the one above it. Like y.
Y-intercept, x equals 0.
What? So y equals 8. I can't see that.
But some of you go back
That
and
don't even
forth,
give us
and
an
that's
answer.
why you can't hear me.
Oh, okay. No, I see.
So it's an I?
Okay?
Well, it looks like a W together.
Yeah, I know, it's squishy, but that's why I speak these at the same time, trying to kind of make this a little more sensible. So then I just divide by -2. Yeah. What's that? On this one? Okay, on this one, remember, my y value would be 0. So once I find what x is, this is where my x goes, and then my y would go second on that one. When I'm doing the y-intercept, once I figure out what y equals, and in this case it equals -4, my x value is 0, and I put in my y. I'll have 1 point each time. I don't know why this keeps going out of focus on me. I'll have 1 value each time. When I find the x-intercept, the y is going to be 0. When I find the y-intercept, the x is going to be 0. And we're going to do a few of these, just to make sure that we're going okay with them. Even if I only have you on the homework, do a few of them on your own, that's okay. And then if I want to graph it, I just am going to plot the 2 points. Now again, if on the first one we're not clicking right away, stick with me. Stay focused and stick with it. We'll get you there. So 2, 0. My x-intercept is 2. And for my y, and I'm going to jumbo size this when we do a couple of these on the back. 0, negative 4 gets me a dot down here. We have to graph it. We're going to start getting some practice with that. Okay. Now, but I want to do some more with you.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Sorry, I had to look around and see. Okay. So for instance, let me go jumbo here. So some of you that I think might be having some issues seeing what we're up to. Let's do this.
This one easy though.
Okay, let's flip to the back here. Let's take a look at 12 and 13. Hopefully in jumbo size, this makes my scribblings a little easier to see what we're up to. Okay. When I'm looking for the x-intercept, and that's what I'm going to do first, I set the other variable equal to 0. So, oops. So my y is going to be 0, okay? So when I make my point, the y value is going to be 0 every time for my x-intercept.
Every time.
Every time. So then to actually find the value,
Can you put, like, for number 13, can you put negative 3 then 0, and then put 0 and then
let's take a peek and see if that would be workable. So here, I just write the x part when I'm looking for the x-intercept, and I do my one step of dividing to get the x value, which would be 3, 0, which means on my x-axis, I put a point on 3. When I do y, it's the same idea, except now the x value is going to be 0 every time.
Why is it 0?
Because if I'm on the y-axis, I'm not moving left or right at all. So that's why I always am going to have an x value for this that would be 0. So now I just look at the y part, but I got to have the negative. And once I have that, it's just one step. And that's negative 5. So I go on the y, if it's negative, I go down. I put a point, and then I just play connect the dots. Okay, and that's all I'm doing on these. So no matter what values you're getting, the process is going to continue to be the same. So just keep reminding yourself. And I'm going to even get my points drawn in here before I even start so I remember some of these things. When I'm finding the x-intercept, y value is always 0. When I'm doing the y-intercept, my x value is always going to be 0. If I put those in right away, then when I solve it, I know where all my numbers go. So here, for instance, value, oh dear. Yep, that's
There we
it.
go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What is that?
Pumpkin bars. All right.
Can't open it.
So here, same thing. If I'm looking for x, I write down the x part only. So 0, negative 3, because that's what my x value would be. It'd be negative 3 when I divide by 4. I think we got this. And then my y-intercept, I plug in the 0 prime. This will be on an upcoming quiz. 2y equals negative 12. Divide by 2 is negative 6. Colby's been trying to tell me for like 30 seconds. I wasn't listening. So my x is negative 3. My y is negative 6. Connect the dots. Okay.
X by itself, does it 1?
Yes. Good question. And let me take that one on, and then we should be good, I think. So one more. 14, and then I'm letting you loose.
Yeah.
Oops. I see some of you writing still, so I'll hang on a second here. So we got to have some discussions. Time's just flying along here. I haven't even realized how much we're going along here. All right, 14. Because Caitlin brought up a good point. She's like, well, wait a minute. It's like, okay, we know this. We know this. What happens if it's just x and there's no number in front of it? Well, that's just the easiest type there is. X equals 10. Oh, that's done. Okay, that's 10. Put it on. And no, that's not 100. I know some of you are going to look at that. Let me get my comma in there. 100 would be hard to graph. We wouldn't have room for that.
And then the y is 2.
I agree. Because if it's my y-intercept, I set the y part equal to the answer and divide by 5. I'm in total agreement. 0, 2. My y is 2. Draw it in there. Woohoo! So that's what you're looking at on the rest of this sheet. And then we should be ready to go. Now tomorrow we're going to do, I bless you, I think we're going to do some more with intercepts. I might bring functions back a little bit. But then we'll, because we need to know how to do functions throughout this too a little bit. We don't want to lose this stuff. That's when we get to like the unit test and some of you are like, dang, we haven't done that in like 3 weeks. And then we forget and then it goes bad. We don't want that to happen. So we're going to do a little spiraling. And then we'll do our mini quiz, which you're all going to do great on. And we'll get a little mini homework check thing going here. So that's our